certain issues. I see so many people putting their energy into scoping out creators who haven't spoken about this mainstream political issue like some sort of witch hunt, and then berating them into a submission of solidarity. That anger and energy seem misplaced. I think a creator will talk about an issue if they're passionate enough about it. I don't think it should be pried out of them, but I understand the anger, I really do. How can you not be angry after seeing the news that children are suffering and dying every single day? And aside from donating what you can and spreading the word, it feels as if there's nothing else you can do besides watch in horror as a war continues on. That feeling of helplessness is so frustrating, so I understand why people are reaching out to these creators, because unlike the government, I guess, they feel more accessible, more likely to listen. In Britney's case, she shot herself in the foot there when she said that creators have a duty to use their platform, because in doing so, she unofficially committed herself to address every mainstream issue from here on out. Then, following that up with her close friend's story rant, it just was not a good look. Granted, it wasn't intended for the public, and especially people pointed out that from the podcast clip where she was talking about a creator's duty to spread awareness before the close friend story was leaked, it seemed like she fully understood her responsibility as a creator with a large platform, but the second her fans asked her to address an injustice that didn't directly apply to her, she fell silent. Now let's get into the second criticism I've seen regarding Britney. Her content slash brand slash image is very male centric, which is ironic considering I'd guess that the majority of her audience is female. But listen, when I first saw someone pointing this out, I was like, damn, I never noticed that before. You may be onto something there. And there are levels to this. The first level is people saying they're uncomfortable with her fawning over men 24/7. The whole white boy of the week thing is weird. To that I say, y'all just don't get it. I'm not one to talk. I literally have a Josh Hutcherson shirt. I'm kidding. But on a real note, I think Britney's coming from a place of like, well, men have been objectifying women since the dawn of fucking time. And so when she dishes it back, it's like, well, you can't take what you've been dishing out. And most of the time it's like silly, goofy vibes. So even though it doesn't bother me personally, I do understand why some of the comments she makes would make someone uncomfortable. The second is her idolizing problematic men. Britney has been vocal about not agreeing or condoning the actions of these men. Nevertheless, she talks about and associates with them pretty frequently. The first one I'm thinking of is Matty Healy. Low-key, I still don't know who he is. I didn't know who he actually was until very recently. If you are unaware, he is the lead vocalist of the band The 1975. But from what I can tell, he makes a lot of jokes and comments that are in really poor taste, gets involved with girls that are significantly younger than him, which I find gross. And this is a more recent thing, so I'm not sure if Britney is aware of this. I imagine that she probably would be, considering her being online and well-versed in the Matty Healy lore. He admitted to watching extremely harmful content, and this is related to the fetishization, if that's a word, of black women. To put it lightly, because I'm not sure how explicit I can be, but also for context, Britney has a long history of being a fan of his music, so it's probably hard to let go of him. And then we get into the whole argument of the art versus the artist, but in this case it's kind of the artist versus the artist, because I think most of the time, well, actually I wouldn't say most of the time, but she does talk a lot about him himself rather than like the music of the band. And then we get to the deepest level, the real beef of the argument, which is Britney's collaborations and who she chooses to elevate with her platform are predominantly men. Her series Royal Court has been going on for about a year, and out of the 8 guests she's brought on, only one of them has been a woman, her bestie, Drew Afualo. She's also a comedian. Her whole thing is calling out dumb, misogynistic men. The majority of the interviews she's done as well have been with guys: Caleb, Jake Shane, Zach Sang, Theo Vaughn, Ludwig in the Yard, Colin and Samir, Ethan Klein, Cody Ko, Spence Was, Zayn and Heath. It's not to say that she's never collaborated with a woman before, that's obviously not true, but the majority of the interviews and collaborations seem to be with men. Now that in itself is an interesting pattern, but drawing the conclusion that she's a misogynistic bitch from that is a tad dramatic. I feel like it's important to take into consideration, well, this is a male-dominated space, especially in the realm of comedy, and she probably predominantly wants to work with fellow comedians, and the comedians that are popular in this space are men. But then, the canceled podcast with Tana and Brooke and the Just Trish podcast with Trisha Paytas both came out and said that Britney declined their offers for her to go on their podcasts. Tana even went as far as to read the rejection message that Britney sent to her.
I'd been seeing Brittany Broski on Theo Vaughn, like a bunch.
Yeah.
Like all those clips. And it was so funny.
So
she did
funny.
Amazing. It was one of my favorite episodes of Theo Vaughn ever. And I fucking, like, she's hilarious. I love her podcast. I texted her and I was like, I would actually fall over and die to have you on my podcast if you're ever feeling like doing charity, LOL.
I love the way you ask someone. Yeah,
I set it up very much like you are so above this, but like if you ever wanted to come stoop down to the slums, we're here and we'd love to have you, Brittany.
Yeah.
Whatever. And she said, OMFG, you know I love you, but my fans would literally stab and grill me on a campfire if I did.
Stab and grill me on a campfire.
And then I said, why? And she didn't answer me.
Why was that kind of mean? Maybe I'm reading too much into it, because if they're friends, that's a different story, I guess. But imagine if you ask a friend to do something and they're like, oh, sorry, if people knew we hang out, that would be the brutal death of my social standing. Love you though. So then this got people thinking, well, what the fuck? Because on the one hand, maybe these podcasts don't align with the brand/image that Brittany is trying to create for herself. She wants to work her way up in the comedy realm, so these collaborations don't make sense for her. I mean, these are all just speculations, but people took notice of the fact that Brittany is insinuating with that message that she sent to Tana that Tana is too problematic for Brittany to be associating with her. But she seemed to have no problem with going on podcasts like the H3 podcast, like Theo Vaughn, who are problematic in their own right in a different way than Tana, Brooke, and Trisha. I saw someone say that there's a clip of Brittany on one of the podcasts where she talks about how she's very aware of who she aligns herself with publicly. She's very aware of her image, so she won't take pictures with certain people out of fear of being canceled. And it's because she's a woman that she's held to that standard. I think her fear is valid, and I certainly don't blame her for protecting her image and wanting to move up in the world. But I think it's weird when part of her brand is also advocating for these social justice issues, feminism. I mean, she had a really long segment in one of her podcast episodes where she was talking about the Barbie movie and the struggles that women face on the daily and the patriarchy and all that. And yet, she perpetuates this very standard by conforming to it through her collaborations and who she chooses to elevate with her platform. And so using the reasoning that she gave in the private message to Tana, this is in regards to her not collaborating with women who are seen as problematic, but making an exception for men. This is now the second time that Brittany's private behavior has been leaked to the public, and it rubbed people the wrong way due to the hypocrisy of it all. Granted, it's not cool to leak things, and people actually point out to Tana that, hey, you know, that's probably why she didn't want to come on the podcast, because you're doing this messy shit. And also, by no means am I saying that Brittany is a bad person. That's not what this video is about. But it does make me wonder what she's like behind closed doors, because the glimpses we've seen haven't painted her in the best light. Also, speaking of collaborators, Cody Co. At this point, I hope all of y'all are well aware of the allegations. If you're not, you can watch my video. That was the one just prior to this one. On Monday, July 15th, which was 2 days after my video came out, a day after D'Angelo's video came out, and the same day that Moist Critical's video came out, Brittany took to her Instagram story to say, I'm crushed to learn about the Cody allegations. If it's proven to be true, then that's extremely upsetting as a collaborator and longtime fan. I find all of this disturbing, inappropriate, and just flat out disappointing. Also, first of all, okay, so there are layers to this. Brittany is in a particularly unfortunate situation right now because, you know, her frequent collaborations with Cody combined with her rejection of Tana have low-key aligned herself on the wrong side of history. But what's interesting about her recent statement is that it begins with, I'm crushed to learn about the Cody allegations, which makes it seem like she's been unaware of them until these past few days. That may be true, that may not be true. I personally find it a little hard to believe, considering I know she's a very online gal. I know she's aware of the things that are going on. That combined with being a longtime fan of Cody Co, as she said in her Instagram story statement, makes me feel like she would have stumbled across these allegations at some point previous to D'Angelo Wallace's video. Plus, apparently people have been letting her know in the comments of her social media posts before everything blew up. I don't know if that's actually true or not. I just saw someone say that. But I also know that even Cody Co fans have been left in the dark because of the censorship in the comment section of his videos. But Brittany is also in, you know, that whole circle of influencers with Cody and Tana, and she's, you know, like interacting with people left and right. Wouldn't people talk? I mean, especially if she's potentially friends with Tana. But again, all of this is just my speculation. Then she begins the next segment with, if it's proven to be true. Girl, what do you mean? Can't you just ask him? I'm kidding. But this personally rubbed me a little bit the wrong way because it undermines both the severity and circumstances of the current allegations. Granted, sure, that statement is still true. Like, they are still allegations until Cody decides to confirm or deny it. However, the situation is as follows, which Brittany should know if she's watched a single video on the topic. Tana has made an allegation against Cody Ko that he knowingly hooked up with her at the age of 25 when she was 17. And there's video evidence of a third party, Gabby Hanna, corroborating this from years ago. Cody is a close friend of someone that has had multiple different women allege that he essayed them, even went so far as to use drugs to R-word someone. And even if these allegations are false, he committed a felony in the process of denying them. And there was no consequence for his actions. There were no consequences for any of them, it seems. And instead of addressing any of this, Cody ran by censoring his comment section and Reddit pages so that his fans would be none the fucking wiser. So in conclusion, that combined with the other criticisms I've mentioned throughout the video, basically Brittany's had some fumbles lately. Nothing that she can't come back from though by growing and surrounding herself with the right people. Let me know what your thoughts are on the matter. Let me know if I've missed anything. If there's anything you'd like to add, if there are any videos you want to see, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.
He's in danger. Opposing forces hold all zones. Take appropriate action.
Let's talk about Jedediah John Don Vance, a historically bad pick, genuinely generational talent in just like sucking. Let's take a look.
Vice presidential candidate JD Vance first reported by ABC calling for people without children to be taxed more.
We need to reward the things that we think are good and punish the things that we think are bad. So you talk about tax policy. Let's tax the things that are bad and not tax the things that are good. If you're making $100,000, $400,000 a year, and you've got 3 kids, you should pay a different, lower tax rate than if you're making the same amount of money and you don't have any kids. It's
boo, boring, too technocratic. You got no riz. It's not easy to comprehend. It's like an Elizabeth Warren style policy, you know, a right-wing Elizabeth Warren approach to otherwise like super easy to understand policy making from the Democrats for once.
It's that simple.
The comments resurfaced after a clip of Vance questioning the leadership abilities of people without kids was already getting blowback.
He's doing what you always say you'd be able to do in pretending to be a really good Republican politician, except he's really bad at it. Yeah, I mean, he is. His instincts are bad. He is a charisma suck. He is deeply unpopular. And he is deeply unpopular in his own goddamn state. People that know him hate him. I told you that that was the case, and here it is. There's actual data for it beyond my data points of the fact that Donald Trump chose a guy who was less popular in the state of Ohio, a deep red state already at this point, that gives him no benefit to the election at all. This like childless cat lady narrative paired up with the DEI is going to rip. It is already ripping. As I talked to Ested yesterday, remember, black people in general, brown people in general, like they know what DEI pick means, especially black people. They know what that means. They hear that every time. They're going to be like, even if they were down to vote for Donald Trump's charisma and Donald Trump's like macho image is not going to be good enough to overcome the steady flow of racist sentiment that they hear on a daily basis being reiterated from those in positions of power that they could potentially vote for.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable.
This is so good. It's so awesome watching these dipshits do podcasts, their talking points, and then like running for president, running for vice president, thinking that this gets good play for the broad majority of the public. Attacking step and adoptive parents is actually insane. Combine that with opposing IVF, and they're going to lose like even conservative leading people. These are some of the most personal decisions that people make. I know. It's so funny that Donald Trump literally recognizes how much of an electoral poison that is, that he immediately was like, whoa, we're not banning IVF. What the f are you guys talking about? Whoa, what do you mean? No, we're not touching IVF. Get the f out of here. And then like the Southern Congregation of Baptist churches got together and they were like, no, actually, we do want to ban IVF. What are you guys doing? And then he went and listened to his dumb son, Don Jr., on who to pick for his VP and went with this guy, a guy who has been incredibly much more restrictive than Donald Trump has been on abortion publicly, okay, with the way he communicates. And also a guy who's gone above and beyond further than that, constantly talking about like women should be having babies. They're broodmares. Like, come on, what are we doing? They're baby incubators. They're baby incubators. They're baby incubators. If you don't have a baby as a woman, what the are you doing? Americans don't like that. Even women that want to have children are going to be like, okay, bro, chill the out. Like, what are you talking about? What do you got, a breeding fetish? What the hell is this
too? And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children.
Now when he turns around and apologizes for this, which he will, if he apologizes for it, then he's weak. He's already wishy-washy. He called Trump Hitler. Now he's Trump's VP and loves Trump. People already don't think that he's a genuine person. And now here's another major policy prescription that he had that he has to go back on. If he doubles down, he looks like a complete psychopath. If he actually apologizes, he looks like a spineless little loser. So ultimately, he is, and this is precisely one of the reasons as to why I said he was a weak candidate from the jump.
He does worse in his home region at minus 16 points than he does in the average of all polls, which is a minus 5-point net favorability rating. So the people who know him best, the region that knows him best, they like him even less than America likes him. And of course, as you pointed out again in that kind intro, is he is historically unpopular for a VP nominee coming out of his first convention as the VP.
All right, so let's specifically look at some former Republican presidential candidates. What do you see?
Yeah, you know, you mentioned Sarah Palin. How about Dan Quayle as well? These are two folks who I think most people remember as not being particularly popular. The amazing thing was coming out of their convention, they actually were pretty popular. Quayle with a plus 15-point net favorability rating. Sarah Palin with a plus 26-point net favorability rating. Again, Vance minus 5 points is just off the charts and falling off the chart in the wrong direction. Not up above the chart, but down below the chart.
Once again, vindication for the Bergamaniacs. That's number one. Number two, Bergamaniacs, we could have had it all. Okay, we could have had it all. But number two, this is what happens when you listen to Donald Trump Jr. on who should be your vice presidential candidate. And last but not least, this is what happens when you go for a guy who is a, so far, one-term senator in Ohio, a state that you already won by 8 points, who literally won his senatorial seat with a smaller margin than you did, as in he's less popular than you in this already red state. And there was another Republican, the governor of Ohio, on that very same ballot that JD Vance was on, that outperformed JD Vance by like 20 points. That is insane. Mike DeWine, who is obviously like a little bit more moderate on a lot of issues that matter to Ohioans, and that happens. You got like, you know, you'll have like sometimes a red governor in a red state that is not as red in his policies that picks up a lot of votes from you and Democrats and stuff. But like Mike DeWine was outperforming Jedediah Vance by 20 points, dude. That is insane that you did this. Like, it just makes no sense.
Are you a racist?
How could you not want this guy as your VP? This is what he ran on.
Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans? The media calls us racist for wanting to build Trump's wall. They censor us, but it doesn't change the truth. Joe Biden's open border is killing Ohioans, with more illegal drugs and more Democrat voters pouring into this country. This issue is personal. I nearly lost my mother to the poison coming across our border. No child should grow up an orphan. I'm JD Vance, and I approve this message because whatever they call us, we will put America.
I love this on so many fronts because like he wasn't even orphaned. He's acting like his mother died. Like, no, she didn't die actually. And also, she didn't get the fentanyl from undocumented migrants. Undocumented migrants play no role whatsoever on the trafficking of fentanyl, according to the Department of Homeland Security numbers. 90% of the drugs apprehended over the border are coming in through regular points of entry, and 90% 91% of those apprehensions are conducted on American citizens. That's right. Not like actual card-carrying American citizens, not undocumented migrants at all. J.D. Vance's mother also was a nurse who was stealing prescription opioids from her own patients. So she had nothing to do with undocumented migrants whatsoever. Anyway, now having said that, great campaign ad. I don't know how that guy underperformed the Republican governor by 20 goddamn points. But also, as you guys know, it was partially because Donald Trump, too comfortable thinking he's going to bully an old man who was already like deeply unpopular, listened to his dumbass son, Don Jr. Here is Don Jr. trying to defend the J.D. Vance situation.
Like, there's some of them are like, we don't even want white women. Like, it doesn't, like, we need to check like 3 or 4 boxes so you can end up with, like, if you're like, you know, a trans communist, this, that, and the other, like, you too can be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company with no experience whatsoever. He's actually spent real time with them. Like, and he's sort of, I would say he's the blue collar billionaire. And 15 years ago when I said it, people used to.
Dude, just show this over and over again. Show this in Ohio and Trump will turn Ohio blue. Okay, like ain't nobody is looking at this and going, yeah, no, this is a winning ticket. Like, no riz. When I say they're weird, this is what I mean, bro. They are gross. They are so gross that it's getting to a point where even other equally gross voters are like, oh God, I don't want to be associated with that.
Shit all over me. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you don't understand. And notion that, you know, democracy is all things, but if the elite, meaning, you know, Barack Obama, the Clintons, a couple billionaire donors be like, okay, this isn't working. We're going to take everything we gave you. We didn't give you any other options. I don't know.
Seems like it should be legal.
I'm reasonably fast. If you see me on Twitter, like I'll get out a meme tweet in seconds. Right.
No, I'll get out a meme tweet in seconds, dude. That's what like a guy with an HVAC business is thinking about. I know I make jokes a lot, but like think about like an average American Republican. Just try to imagine like your friend's dad or some shit who maybe owns like a catering business. I don't know, living in Oklahoma. Like I don't think that guy looks at this and goes, yeah, this is a winning message. Oh, this guy tweets really fast. I love that.
I want to take aim at the left, specifically the childless left, because I think the rejection of the American family is perhaps the most pernicious and most evil thing that the left has done in this country. Consider all of the next gen of the Democrat Party.
See, they're doing it again, by the way. It's like you're supposed to just say they don't respect family values and then let people make inferences off of that, which can mean anything. It can mean that they don't like gay people. It's like, oh, they want to trans the children. That's all you need to say. They don't care about family values. That is a message that resonates with normal Americans to a certain degree. When you dive into it and get real nerdy with it and you start talking about like, yeah, they don't care about family values, which when I say that, I mean like you need to strap up every woman that is capable of carrying a pregnancy to term to a baby incubation machine. All of a sudden you're losing all those people who are like, whoa, I just meant like family values. I thought we were talking about, you know, making sure that America had strong traditional values. Like you literally give the game away. It is the exact opposite of the Lee Atwater strategy, the famous Lee Atwater strategy of like, you know, post-civil rights movement, you can't say the N-word anymore, so you say welfare queens, right? They forgot that you need the dog whistle, and that's partially on Trump because Trump literally took the dog whistles and just turned them into bullhorns. So these guys think they can get away with it, but their instinct is so nerdy that they have to turn this into like some kind of scientific racism. That's the problem. They forgot that you just say they don't care about family values, and then Democrats try to interrogate that, and then you go, why are you asking me these questions? I just mean family values. Like, you're supposed to stand on it and just like give a wink and a nod. You don't, yeah, McKinsley moment is right. He's talking like a goddamn consultant. We need to eliminate redundancies type shit.
The names are obvious. They're well-known people. Kamala Harris, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who's now the Secretary of Transportation, Cory Booker, AOC. Think all these people. They're different. They come from different walks of life, different parts of the country. What is the one thing that unites every single one of them? Not a single one of them has any children. Look, a lot of people are unable to have kids for very complicated and important reasons. There are people, of course, for biological reasons, medical reasons, that can't have children. The target of these remarks is not them. It's important to point that out. It is one thing to recognize that there are people who don't have children. It's one thing to recognize that there are people who don't have children through no fault or choice of their own. But it's something else to build a political movement invested theoretically in the future of this country when not a single one of them actually has any physical commitment to the future of this country.
Oh, you know what's crazy? I don't know about Megyn Kelly, but you know who has foster children and no children, no biological children of her own? Laura Ingraham. Like, that's how close to the chest this is. There are so many Americans who are foster parents, so many Americans who are step parents, so many Americans who don't have biological children of their own. And this kind of argumentation just weirdly causes people like even Laura Ingraham to catch a stray. This is not Laura Ingraham. This is Megyn Kelly. Just letting you know, don't mix up your blonde Republican commentators.
So a few days after those remarks, back in 2021, Mr. Vance went on Tucker Carlson's show on Fox to address some of the blowback. And that's when he made the comments about the childless cat ladies. Watch.
We're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children.
Well, the Harris team recirculated the comments this week, leading Democrats and the media, the same media, currently rewrite.
You know when I get mad at Radlibs for like leaning into the cartoonish depiction of like liberalism and the way that Republicans try to portray the entirety of the left as like hysterical, emotional, and incredibly moralistic woke skulls. Like, there's no reason to lean into that message and become that thing that people try to portray you as. This is the Republican version of that. Democrats, not usually, but at least like as a whole, broadly, try to portray Republicans as these like bloodless sociopathic weirdos who are trying to do Handmaid's Tale. Handmaid's Tale is basically like the most common meta, right? Whenever talking about the Republican Party, especially post Roe v. Wade. Or Handmaid's Tale, not Handmaiden, I don't know what it's called. I didn't watch it. Why would you literally voluntarily put yourself out there and be like, no, I do want to do Handmaid's Tale? My point is, in popular culture, Democrats will always post those fucking images to be like, this is what the future Republicans want. It's ironic that JD Vance was like, no, that is the future that we want, and here's how we get there. That's so stupid. What a stupid thing to do.
And saying that we should not have the child tax credit, which lowers tax rates for parents of young children. It's because they have become anti-family and anti-kid. And I'm proud to stand up for parents, and I hope that parents out there recognize that I'm a guy who wants to fight for you. I want to fight for your interests.
Yeah, no, that's definitely how you came across as. Also, wait, is he saying he's pro-child tax credits? Wait, what?
Has lied about this, that this is not about criticizing people who for various reasons didn't have kids. This is about criticizing the Democratic Party for becoming anti-family and anti-child. Why do we have the Harris campaign coming out this very morning, Megyn, and saying that we should not have the child tax credit, which look.
Wait, why is he saying that the Democratic Party is that even true? Wait, what? That's just a genuine lie, right? Yeah, Axios on Harris's agenda, $2 trillion for universal pre-K education, elderly care, and child care improvements. Wants to raise the corporate tax rate, revival of child tax credit expansion based on our efforts in the administration and the Senate. And the guy who's saying that right now has said two different things. One, I believe he voted against it, and two, not only did he vote against it, if I'm not mistaken, I gotta look it up, hold on, the expansion of child tax credits, but also he has literally said things such as like universal pre-K is weird. Like, that's just like universal pre-K is like a bad idea. And it's like, yeah, here it is. Good news, child tax credit bill is headed to the Senate. While POTUS and I continue to fight for the full expanded child tax credit, this bill should be passed quickly. President Biden is ready to sign it into law. That was in February. The Harris campaign came out against taxes for Americans with children. Remember, there's a November? Is that the new meta? Is just like to lie about it or something and to be like, no, we like the child tax credits? There's so, like, the media will pick this up and immediately be like, this is the dumbest thing that they could have ever said. And it also makes them seem like they're on board with the expansion of child tax credits, which as far as a policy prescription goes, is a Democratic Party policy that the Republicans voted against. Hey guys, on life support, Senate Republicans are prepared to sink the child tax credit bill, a $78 billion package of tax breaks for families and businesses passed in the House with an overwhelming bipartisan vote. But key GOP senators demand big changes or else. And if I'm not mistaken, one of those senators was Vance. No, Vance is among the growing group of Republicans who support expanding the child tax credit, which provides money to low and middle. Okay, I was wrong. He did not. He didn't do that poison pill. After Trump expanded the child tax credit, the passage of Tax Cuts and Jobs Act 2017, families are now eligible for up to $2,000. In 2021, he tweeted his support for a proposal that would give $12,000 tax credit to married parents who have children under the age of 13. Married parents. The Maggie Hassan part of the bottom of the article. Hassan's bill incorporated $79 billion tax package negotiated by Ron Wyden, House Ways and Means Chairman Jason Smith, who grew up in a poor family receiving government assistance, spoken positively about the elements of the Wyden-Smith bill, which includes an expansion of child tax credits for low-income households. The bill faces opposition from Senate Republican leaders who believe it would reduce incentives to work. Yeah, this is such a wild way to swing. It's such a dumb way because it's literally on the Republican Party that this didn't pass. CTC being a reduction in taxes for those with children versus increasing taxes on those without children are two different things. He's only supported the latter. Yeah, I don't think that JD Vance wants an expansion of child tax credits. I think he wants to tax people without children more. JD Vance's attacks on childless Americans is even vile. He called for higher taxes on those without children. This is exactly like the child tax credit. JD Vance, actually, you get less money if you're a single parent. Also, Vance opposed the American Rescue Plan, which expanded the child tax credit. Yeah, he voiced support for the Missouri Senator Josh Hawley's 2021 plan to expand the child tax credit, which included a marriage bonus and catered to two-parent single-income households. Millions of working people want to start a family and would like to care for their children at home, but current policies do not respect these preferences, Hawley said when the bill was introduced. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but childless Americans already pay higher taxes than Americans with children. You want to know why? Because you don't have dependents. Oh, this makes sense. Donald walked out on the family when JD was a toddler. When JD was 6, he transitionally divorced after his father left the family a few years prior. He reflected in Hillbilly Elegy how his mother informed him of the divorce by telling him he'd never see his biological father again. It was the saddest I had ever felt, he wrote in his memoir. Of all the things I hated about my childhood, nothing compared to the revolving door of father figures. One of the funniest moments about this is that his dad's name is Donald. That's crazy. Oh my God. His entire worldview is... I'm not a firm believer on the idea that like he got panned by critics when the Netflix show came out and that's why he became a Republican. I don't believe that. That's when he became like a Trump guy. I don't believe that, but I do believe that this is the reason why he's constantly talking about like no-fault divorce.
The Democrats in the past 5-10 years, Megan, they have become anti-family. It's built into their policy. It's built into the way they talk about parents and children, and it's time that we called that out. I don't think we should back down from it, Megan. I think we should be honest about the problem.
Here's what's crazy. It's not just Senator J.D. Vance, Republican and running mate to Donald Trump, saying that.
That's awesome. He's doubling down on it. That's great, man. He's doubling. He's like, every time I say family values, understand that I think women should be cows that are bred.
Catastrophic problem. And it's interesting when I raise this issue about we don't have enough babies, a lot of liberals and a lot of people on the left will say, well, we can just replace American children with immigrants.
That's not what people are saying at all. It's because it's far too costly to have children. People just can't do it because surviving on a single income household, surviving as a single income household is almost impossible. That's number one. And number two, the child tax credit that the Republican Party, his party, tried to ether, is literally addressing that to a certain degree. What's crazy about this is where Joe Biden and the Democratic Party should be talking about the hypocrisy. This is a gift to the Democratic Party. Just run this over and over again and be like, this dumb keeps saying that it's the liberals that want to stop child tax credits. We're running on child tax credits. We have a bill that the Democratic president wants to sign into law that expands child tax credits. We know it's unaffordable to be a parent in this country. We want to fix that problem. And the Republican Party seemingly keeps saying, oh, this will disincentivize workers. That's what the Republicans in the Senate are saying. That's his caucus. But also, there's another thing that I want to find here. I don't know if you guys have do you have the time when he called like universal pre-K to be like weird? He said, he didn't even say it was weird. He said universal child care is an attack on the working poor. Universal child care is a massive subsidy to the lifestyle preferences of the affluent over the preferences of the middle and working class. The data he cites from American Compass, a conservative think tank, shows that people without a 4-year degree would prefer a situation where one parent works full-time and one parent provides child care in the home. That's fair and honestly unsurprising as far as the options available in the survey go. I can see how that one is more appealing to many people, especially people whose low-paying jobs, quite frankly, suck. Except the reality is that if they were to adopt child tax credit expansion and also add universal child care in general, okay, why the would the working poor say no to that? It's just not an option for them in that poll that he's using. But the first problem here is that Wilcox isn't just arguing against universal daycare. He's also arguing that Americans without a college degree would rather have direct cash assistance from the government or a wage subsidy that boosts their family's income. That's pretty much exactly what the child tax credit expansion in the American Rescue Plan does. Put cash in the pockets of parents directly every month. It's also an idea every Republican in Congress voted against as part of the full bill. President Joe Biden said in his joint address to Congress on Wednesday that he wants to make that expansion permanent. Vance would prefer a plan like the one from Senator Josh Hawley, offers smaller payments under more constrained conditions as far as policies go as a start, but wouldn't aid nearly as many families on a regular basis as Biden's proposed permanent expansion. So if that's off the table, then how about a wage increase for Americans without a college degree? They make up 78% of minimum wage workers according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and yet, nope, that's off the table too. Biden's proposal to raise the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, which he touted again Wednesday night, is a non-starter for most Republicans. This is before the Democrats tanked that, by the way, by saying the Senate parliamentarian. When they had tried to attach to a different bill, the Senate parliamentarian declared it to be a non-starter, and they basically turned around and said, okay, oops, we can't do that, which is why I was very angry at the Democratic Party at the time, because it was objectively stupid for the Democrats to leave this on the table and not argue on partisan boundaries, but allow the Democratic Party itself to get cooked by bullshit Senate parliamentarian appointed positions. The Heritage Foundation also argued that raising the minimum wage to $15 would come with the corresponding spike in child care costs across the country. So they don't want to fix the problem is what I mean.
All right, I'm giving you the New Yorker. Again, this is the first was from the New York Times. Here's the New Yorker, How Liberals Talk About Children by Jay Caspian Kang. This is from June. This is a month ago. And it ends with the following. He talks about how, this person, Jay, talks about how the messaging from leftists around children is all about their economic value, how much they're going to cost, what kind of a burden they're going to be, as opposed to the goodness they bring into the world and our...
Oh my God, they're so dumb. Oh my God, that's awesome. Yes, dude, that is a significant hurdle for average people. What is this like spiritual, holistic attitude, bro? That's the whole point. What do you mean? Wow, I can't believe leftists are talking about the material realities that basically make it impossible to have children if you want to have children. Even if you want to have children. Wow.
Lives. And the piece ends as follows. We should talk about them as a universal and immutable good. So that's exactly what you did in those remarks, JD. And I understood it completely. And I think even the left, if they're honest, understand.
Are perma renters with like 8 roommates trying to make ends meet and still barely making a bag. When the weekend comes around, maybe you're using like the little bit of disposable income you have to go out and like feel like a human being again. And these guys are out here being like, why don't you just raise your children on good vibes? So there was one more thing I wanted to show you on JD Vance before we move on from that. Dude, nothing is as Rizless and as auraless as this video.
Hey guys, JD Vance here in Radford, Virginia. I thought I'd take you behind the scenes a little bit. When you get to an event, they've got a ton of crap for you to drink and eat.
What do you mean ton of crap? Like, why are you saying that? Why are you on what? It's just normal food, brother. Why are you saying it's crap?
You got 3 bottles of Diet Mountain Dew, about a dozen Snickers, a bag of chips. If I ate even half this stuff, of course, I'd balloon up like crazy. This is
Oh my God, this is exactly what Ron DeSantis was doing. Oh my God, Donald Trump defeated Ron DeSantis without ever even talking to him, only to have Ron DeSantis as his vice president. Oh my God, oh my God. It's Sugar Man. He's doing It's Sugar Man. Yeah, the ghost of Sugar Man returned.
But now you're not having puddings. No pudding. No way. It's Sugar Man.
Yeah, it's good to meet you too. Oh, what is that? Nicey? Yeah? Probably a lot of sugar.
Yeah, look at all the that makes you fat Americans. I will never have that. Even the 5-ish on them.
Well, Kennedy, it seems like the Republicans are getting a big J.D. Vance, should I say couch-sized wake-up call.
Okay, but that's not the Republican. That's the liberal on the panel, Chad. Come on. She's the liberal on the panel, but they shouldn't be laughing at that joke. Uh-oh.
Wake-up call. Pervert. got smut on the brain. Did he or didn't he? Greg says that Axe is so great now, and I think J.D. Vance...
Wow, Buttfeld did not like that. Look at Buttfeld. Buttfeld's like, excuse me, what's the joke? The joke is that J.D. Vance the couch. I know the story is fake, but come on, have a little.
Should I say?
Yeah, that's probably a lot of sugar, huh? Good to see you.
Yeah, look at all the that makes you fat Americans. I will never have that. Even the 5-ish on them.
Well, Kennedy, it seems like the Republicans are getting a big J.D. Vance, should I say couch-sized wake-up call.
Okay, but that's not the Republican. That's the liberal on the panel, Chad. Come on. She's the liberal on the panel, but they shouldn't be laughing at that joke. Uh-oh.
Wake-up call. Pervert. got smut on the brain. Did he or didn't he? Greg says that Axe is so great now, and I think J.D. Vance...
Wow, Buttfeld did not like that. Look at Buttfeld. Buttfeld's like, excuse me, what's the joke? The joke is that J.D. Vance the couch. I know the story is fake, but come on, have a little fun, guys. Even Benny Boy is disagreeing with Jedediah Vance. Oh my Lord, look at this.
I have to avoid. So, J.D. Vance is the vice presidential nominee for President Trump. Now, if you had a time machine, if you go back 2 weeks, would you pick J.D. Vance again? I doubt it. Back in 2021, J.D. Vance was appearing on Tucker Carlson's show back when Tucker Show was on Fox. And he ripped into what he called the childless cat lady culture of the Democrats, including Kamala Harris.
Guys, you don't understand. You don't understand. Okay, can I just make something very clear? J.D. Vance was a young 37-year-old. Let his opinions form. He is grown. Just like he was a young 35-year-old when he said Donald Trump is Hitler. He was a young 35-year-old who was duped by the media when he said Donald Trump is Hitler, and his opinions changed. They evolved. Oh, wait, I'm hearing that J.D. Vance doubled down on the childless cat lady remark. Okay, well, he's a young 39-year-old now, and his opinion will inevitably change tomorrow. Guys, liberals, they're so annoying. They're doing a no growth, and they're thinking nobody can grow from their previous positions. Oh, God, I'm so annoyed.
It's basically saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it?
Now, I agree that our country has moved away from caring about the future because too few Americans care about having children. I totally agree with that. However, this description that J.D. Vance is using, is that politically smart or is it politically damaging? Now, again, he doesn't have a time machine. He can't go back and undo something he said now 3.5 years ago. With that said, Democrats are, of course, using this as a club with which to beat Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. They're trying to run up the gender gap. One of the things to understand about this election cycle is that the gender gap...
Ben probably didn't see J.D. Vance literally agree and double down on that quote today.
Is larger than it has ever been in the history of American politics in all likelihood. Males overwhelmingly vote for Trump. Females, particularly single females, overwhelmingly vote for Biden. And so they're going to try to find some sort of wedge to claim that all Republicans are sexist. And this is the wedge they're using today.
Yeah, the wedge that they're using to claim all Republicans are sexist is only the vice presidential nominee being sexist by your own estimation. What do you mean? Bro, you literally said it wasn't the best way to... You agree with it, and then even you also doubled down and agreed that maybe it wasn't the best way to say it. Anyway, here's Tommy Lauren.
Now they've got about 100 days of a honeymoon period that might very well last 50 to 60 days, where
people are still going to be just excited that they have Kamala Harris. They're not going to dig into her record. They're not going to be bothered by her record because they're going to be so excited for probably the next 50 days. Well, we've only got about 100 until a general election and even fewer to early voting.
Yeah.
So don't get too comfortable on the Trump side. And I'm sure we're going to talk about this later, but the attacks on her personally, on whatever her past personally may have been, or calling her a childless lady, none of those are going to work, and they're going to make women second guess their support for what they may have felt for Donald Trump. Bad move.
Ooh, there are a lot of strong points in that for Republicans. I mean, depending on how much you love Donald Trump and do or don't like his VP pick, some of that was for J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's for don't call women dumb. It just doesn't work. On Republican women or liberal women, it just doesn't work. There are much better ways to attack Kamala.
She's right, but once again, Republicans can't stop themselves. It's awesome. Also, new Fox News polls just came out, and boy, oh boy, is not looking too good for the Republicans, that is. Michigan, 49%, Trump 49%. Minnesota, Harris 52, Trump 46. Pennsylvania, Harris 49, Trump 49. Wisconsin, Trump 50, Harris 49%. And for the record, this Fox News being a Fox News poll doesn't change anything. Before you say, oh, that's a Fox poll, like that means that it's even better. Like, no, they have reputable polls. They don't f around with that shit. This isn't like Rasmussen or some shit. This is like a good poll.
Just one adult. What caused all of this to come out? First, you hear nothing from nobody. Yeah. You hear nothing from nobody. Then you hear something from everybody, all at the same time.
They might not have been the medium to talk to anybody about it.
Serious sentence.
So basically, a 19-year-old girl is married to an 89.
If I write it, they bite it publicly. Can't fight it, I might hit you bugging me. If you like it, I love it, it's lovely. Kid brains on the psychic, she ugly.
Motivational influencers are a dime a dozen on the internet. Many take advantage of viewers by trying to manipulate them through stories of struggle and overcoming adversity, only to put their strategies behind a paywall to make as much money as possible through books and online services. One particular motivational influencer was Brother Polite, who is considered a strong figure within the online Black community. However, in all reality, Brother Polite would be found to be more of a blight to his own community rather than an inspiration, as his whole brand would dissolve into ashes due to allegations of him targeting a minor. This is the story of Polite, aka Michael Nowak Jr. At the time of this story unfolding, 37-year-old Michael Nowak Jr., aka Brother Polite, was a motivational speaker and author. In his younger years, Mr. Nowak was a gangbanger in New York City, who was at one point locked up for attempted murder.
It was just a lot of chaos. The children felt they should inherit the building of their father. The man gave me the building to run, and he gave me other responsibilities, and it was being overridden, and it was people in the community making sure that I don't get that space in leadership. They made my task very hard. It started to escalate so much that in turn, when guns is being pulled out on people or people are threatening people, one of the brothers got shot in his head. Of course, I was blamed for the shooting. So I got locked up for it.
Later in life, Michael apparently left that lifestyle behind and made it his mission to bring up and inspire people in the Black community, becoming a motivational speaker and influencer. He's the founder of the so-called New Covenant, which is a group that focuses on people coming together and reaching enlightenment through spirituality and financial independence. Quote, though highly spiritual, we have no specific tie with anyone, monotheistic or polytheistic denomination. Our incentive is to reestablish economical sovereignty back into the lives of the people that need it the most. We ask that you entertain the precept of spiritual economics to substantiate all precepts. We lead by example. The man was also known for being a big critic of the Black Hebrew Israelites, an extremist group that believed Black people are the descendants of ancient Israelites. You've seen these guys in public before.
There's no such thing as anything that's mixed. You are what your father is. So at the end of the day, my father, who would he be on this chart? He would be considered a so-called Puerto Rican. He would be considered a Taino Indian. Right. If that answers your question. So what is it? It's 100% according to God. Not your God, the white man, but the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
All right, hold on. Because I know Puerto Rico means rich port. And there wasn't no goddamn Puerto Rico in the Bible during Jesus' time. So we're not going to talk about no damn Puerto Ricans.
Michael has written over 90 motivational books and given many interviews on YouTube. The seemingly innocuous, charismatic figure would become quite prevalent on social media, garnering over 310,000 followers on Instagram. In a big interview with DJ Vlad, Nowak was given the opportunity to speak in a more candid fashion about his personal life, and he revealed much, explaining that he was a polygamist and had over 4 wives, and at the time of the interview, he was courting 2 more.
You're married?
Yeah.
But you're married to more than one person?
This is correct.
So you have a polygamous relationship?
In a de facto sense, yeah.
You have how many wives?
I have 4, and then I'm courting 2 more.
Now, polygamy is not legal in the United States outside of some religious exceptions, specifically with Mormons. So he wasn't technically legally married to any of these women, but let's just say the spiritual prophet kept some ladies around. And things get freakier. It should also be noted that Michael is a reported protege of black supremacist Malachi Z. York, a man who was arrested back in 2002 for transporting minors across state lines with the purpose of sexual molestation. This case would be reported as the largest prosecution for child molestation directed at one single person. Michael would publicly defend Mr. York in a video against an actual victim of molestation.
None of these children had enough sense in their mind to go tell their parent that this isn't right. I've been touched sexually, I've been sexually abused. Not one child out of all these children. It could have stopped so long ago if just one child or just one adult. What caused all of this to come out? First you hear nothing from nobody. Yeah. You hear nothing from nobody. Then you hear something from everybody, all at the same time.
They might not have been the medium to talk to anybody about the situation.
Not even their parents.
I mean, that's of course. I could have told my mother.
You chose not to.
He would even go on to say that if York was really a confirmed child molester, he would still worship him.
Let's say he molested 1,000 children. Factually. Okay. Genetic evidence and everything. Things that we don't deny. Scientifically, we say, wow, okay, true. If someone was to ask me, would you still worship him as your Most High, acknowledge him as your Most High God? I would have to.
Soon, the brand that Michael had worked hard on building would topple over. The way the story goes is that one night, Michael had asked his girlfriend if he could take the woman's 14-year-old daughter to an after party at a club in Miami. It would later be claimed that the mother was under the impression that Michael was going to take the daughter to have a sort of one-on-one conversation about respecting her mother. When he took the 14-year-old out, he would allegedly attempt to get the teen to perform oral sex on him. However, at some point, the girl passed out, be it from alcohol or whatever, and she woke up to Michael trying to get her to throw up. It would be leaked later that Michael's girlfriend had called him at least 50 times while the daughter was gone, trying to figure out where she was and where they had gone, but he never answered. She started to panic, but eventually her daughter would arrive home. Something seemed off, as Michael's girlfriend would find her daughter still intoxicated with severe swelling around her mouth. After confronting Michael, he reportedly begged her not to go to the police, as it would ruin his career. Police were made aware of the situation and served Michael with a DNA warrant in June. And on August 16th of 2021, he surrendered himself to the authorities, where he was charged with engaging with a 14-year-old child for sex, sexual battery, child abuse, and delinquency of a minor. Michael's defense attorney, David Torres, was adamant that his client was innocent. Once the evidence is produced, he's going to be exonerated. So yeah, not guilty, nothing else. We have no doubt that he is not this person. We're going to get him past this and back on with his life. A content creator and friend of Michael named Sawnetter TV would call Michael while live on stream. And during this call, Michael denied the claims and said that he was no weirdo.
People are talking crazy that you had molested a 14-year-old girl. I don't know how true it is. That's why I said I'm not going to jump out the window. I'm not saying none of that until we can find out what's really good. And I don't know if you want to talk or we can set something up probably tomorrow whenever you can stop traveling or whatever.
You know we don't play those games. Just like coming at me before the goofy shit before.
Okay.
You know, when people make serious charges, when people make serious allegations like that, you know YouTube ain't the place where you deal with it. I stay with our whole fucking legal team. You know what I'm saying?
Say less.
But what I'll tell you is this. You know, I ain't no fucking weirdo. You see all the beautiful, voluptuous people I be with.
Yeah.
So I ain't a weirdo.
During one of the early hearings, Michael was ordered not to have any contact with the victim through social media or any third party. Further investigation would confirm that his DNA was on the girlfriend's daughter. In September of 2023, Michael would post on Instagram claiming that his charges were dropped and that an update would be coming soon. He even put out a music video at this time, you know, kind of like a celebration that he had gotten off. Michael had actually accepted a plea deal, and on September 7th of 2023 was sentenced to 7 years in prison and 10 years of probation, along with having to pay a $25,000 restitutional fine. Even with this being discovered by people following his case, Brother Polite would again post to Instagram celebrating the plea deal, claiming that the sexual charges had been dropped and that he was only charged with child abuse and delinquency of a minor.
The mother and the daughter and the prosecution dropped every single sexual charge. I'm saying it again. The mother, the daughter, my accusers, in addition to the state, the prosecution, all agreed they need to drop all of the sexual charges. So yeah, it's a victory, but it's bittersweet. It's a victory because I was facing life. No parole, no probation. Now you may say, how could this be possible if a minor was so-called molested and it was DNA evidence? And people say DNA don't lie. And I always said, people do.
A voice clip from the mother of the daughter that Michael was accused of raping would leak to the internet.
For a grown man to violate a child who trusted him, you should be ashamed of yourself. You plotted on me and my little girl. The entire time you knew what you planned to do. Isolate, intoxicate, then violate my baby. Shame on you. I trusted you to bring her right back.
Brother Polite would chime in with this on his social media. The irony, I dropped out of school, 9th grade. It took for me to be in prison for me to get my high school diploma. They took 2 years off my time. I'll see you guys a lot sooner than you think. Great news to come. Thank you all for the love and support. From prison, it seems that he's still trying to come up with some sort of hustle or business, advertising a $2,000 mentorship on his YouTube channel with audio that sounds like it was recorded from a prison phone. A user comments, "Dude is in jail, don't waste your money."
It's like God giving us meat. We're not really supposed to eat meat. We're supposed to eat the fruits of our labor that was given to Adam and Eve.
Scamming influencers have become more prevalent in recent years. But what about when an online scammer turns into a full-on mobster and decides to kidnap one of his rivals? This is the story of New Jersey influencer Jay Mazzini. In 2021, Jay Mazzini, also known as Igbara Jabara from Edgewater, New Jersey, was a famous Instagram influencer who had garnered a fan base consisting of over 1 million followers to his platform. Jay was known mostly for handing out cash to random people on the streets as gifts, portraying an earnest entrepreneur who wanted to help people in need with the use of his Muslim faith and his vast wealth. Some examples would be him distributing large sums of money to shoppers in grocery stores, fast food restaurant employees, and a woman he had encountered at an airport who had lost her purse. However, behind this innocuous veneer was a methodical sociopath that wouldn't let anyone get in his way of making money. You see, Mazzini wasn't actually a trustworthy entrepreneur. He was actually laundering money. He would carry out multiple fraud schemes that scammed investors out of at least $8 million using the fake online persona that he created to trap these investors. He also used the tactic that has been identified as affinity fraud, which is using one's religion or ethnic background to gain trust. Authorities claim that Mr. Igbara used the company named Halal Capital LLC for an investment scheme. Portraying himself as a successful investor, he solicited money from the Muslim American community, quote, for purported investments in stock, electronics resale, and the sale of personal protective equipment, unquote. However, it was all a Ponzi scheme, and the man spent nearly all the money on himself, including buying luxury vehicles and gambling. In late 2020, his scamming practices would become more commonly known after he was reported on by YouTuber CoffeeZilla, who accused Mazzini of operating a prize scam, as well as exposing the fact that Mazzini had not only been banned by PayPal, but was offering to buy a PayPal business account at the time. Coffee would go on to calculate how much money Mazzini had promised, and it was over $100 million as opposed to the money he would gain, which was only $7 million. Something wasn't adding up. It was also reported in a lawsuit that Jay had claimed to have had millions of dollars in cash robbed from him at gunpoint, and said that he wouldn't be able to make the payments towards investors.
According to this lawsuit, the entire fund that he raised was $10 million in funding from people. So this isn't like chump change. This isn't like, oh, I had some spare change lying around that I could afford to lose. These are people's life savings that are invested with this man, this con man. And what do they get out of it? By November 7th, 2020, people are starting to get super aggressive. I mean, they've like been yanked around forever. So they're saying like, you gotta pay us now. Well, the payments were scheduled for August, didn't happen. Then August 22nd, pay attention guys, pay attention. Jay Mazzini advised Nord that he had been robbed at gunpoint. Hey, does anybody buy that? So I'm supposed to give you your money. I was gonna give it to you, but oops, I was robbed. I mean, this rivals, what's his name? Oh, Jesse Smollett's whole thing of like, I was like hung by a noose or whatever. Like, this is that level of like a lie.
As CoffeeZilla continued to cover Mazzini, interviewing his alleged victims of fraud, Jay would completely deactivate his Instagram, but it would only get worse, as Jay would turn to violence. At some point, Mazzini got into a beef with a rival, reportedly named Amjad Mashal. This individual allegedly threatened to blow the whistle on the illegal schemes that the influencer was participating in. You see, it was reported that a page promoting Mazzini as a scammer started to get a lot of traction, and Amjad took credit for being the creator of this page. Later, he would say in an interview that he actually didn't have access to the page and that he was just having a little bit of fun with it.
He literally deceived his own Muslim community. Now it's just slowly circulating that Jay Mazzini is a fraud. Jay Mazzini is a fraud. He tried so hard to delete comments. He tried to block people. He tried to shut it out. This one page comes up, Jay Mazzini scam. I start posting the page, and I started a rumor that I had the page. I felt like it could get me into trouble, but I was like, hey, this is fun, why not? And I think you know the rules of engagement here.
But nonetheless, Mazzini took this very seriously, and in retaliation, almost like a mobster, he devised a plan to kidnap and intimidate this person through violence. Mazzini did just that, reaching out to Mashal, feigning that he'd like to talk it out with him. Jay allegedly arranged to meet with Mashal on March 15th, 2021 to discuss their differences over coffee at 7-Eleven. While there, Mashal would get into Mazzini's Range Rover, and that's when two other accomplices that were wearing masks joined him. They then kidnapped Mashal, taking him on a ride through North Jersey. At some point, Mashal jumped out of the vehicle, but he was dead-ended. This foot race eventually resulted in Mashal going to the second floor of a building and jumping off of it to try to get away from his pursuers. He sprained his ankle in the process, and the group was able to catch back up to him. When they did, they stomped him out and put him back in the car. During this ride, the victim was beaten to the point where he developed a concussion. Surveillance footage showed the victim attempting to escape multiple times as Mazzini's vehicle traveled from Edgewater to Cliffside Park and Fort Lee. The victim was reportedly told, quote, "If you call the police, I will kill you." And he was allegedly strangled with the cord, threatened with a machete, and stripped naked. After some time, he would be thrown out of the vehicle and left in Passaic County. Mazzini and one of his accomplices would be arrested on March 17th of 2021 on charges of kidnapping, aggravated assault, luring or enticing of an adult, possession of a weapon for unlawful purpose, criminal coercion, threat to inflict bodily injury, endangering an injured victim, and terroristic threats, threats of crime or violence. A week after being charged with kidnapping, another controversy would impede his online career, as Jay would finally be charged with being part of a multi-million-dollar Bitcoin scheme. Federal authorities announced that he was being accused of soliciting the cryptocurrency from followers through Instagram videos, starting in early January of 2021. Jay promised that if people sent him Bitcoin, he would pay them back 5% over market, but ended up never reimbursing anyone for these trades, allegedly defrauding his fans of $2.5 million. Quote, Ibarra uses immense social media popularity to dupe his followers into selling him Bitcoin. This office will continue to work closely with its law enforcement partners to stop fraudsters like the defendant from perpetrating social media scams that prey on innocent victims. It was also discovered that Jay was offering to transfer $3 million to one victim, when in reality he only had $162 in his bank account. The judge would determine that Jay was a potential flight risk and declined to administer any sort of bail for the scandalous influencer, claiming that his release would create a significant danger to the alleged victim and the community. Authorities would also accuse Mazzini's wife, a woman named Jonama Denoyne, of gathering personal information about the assigned judge on his case. Phone data seized by investigators allegedly shows the wife Googling the judge's name, his family, his work history, etc. The prosecutor deemed this as a perceived threat, and the case was moved out of Bergen County and into Passaic County, with a different presiding judge over it. Later, on July 14th of 2021, Mazzini's wife would be brought in on charges of kidnapping and conspiracy to commit kidnapping, as well as witness tampering and bribery. Speaking of bribery, another twist in this story is that the victim, Amjad Mashal, would actually be brought in on charges in September of 2022, when it was found that Mazzini had allegedly offered a bribe through another person to Mashal to recant his statement for $100,000. For this fee, Mashal would change his statement, facilitating the release of one of the defendants. Mashal would be arrested on these bribery charges. Jay would cut a deal with the prosecution and pled guilty to one count of first-degree kidnapping in exchange for a 5-year prison sentence. One of Jay's co-conspirators, Ishmael Allen, also pled guilty in Passaic County Superior Court to the charge of third-degree criminal restraint in exchange for a 3-year prison sentence. On November 2nd of 2022, Jay would plead guilty to wire fraud conspiracy, and money laundering. On April 24th, 2024, Jay would be sentenced to serve 7 years in prison due to the charges brought onto him from his crypto fraud and money laundering. The sentence also mandates that Jay must forfeit over $10 million. You got this. And well, you've made it to the end. Let me know what you guys thought about this video down below in the comments section, and let me know who or what you want me to talk about next. I want to give a major shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys. Wavy Web Surf out. Peace.
Mr. Bertram is an animated series for divorced men and boys who will grow up to be divorced men. Mr. Bertram is a sort of ultimate divorced guy who has somehow gotten married in spite of not seeming to have done a single thing to improve himself, because it was never his fault to begin with. In the context of the show, his ex-wife is actually a lesbian, so her having left him doesn't mean he's a bad guy, it's just that there is something fundamentally different about her that doesn't let her acknowledge his greatness. This divorced guy energy permeates the entire show. Mr. Bertram is a man whom society has forgotten, but this show, which is a clear example of wish fulfillment, picks a society that is slowly realizing he needs to be venerated because it turns out everyone else was mostly wrong this whole time. The origin of the Bertram character goes all the way back to 1994 when he was created by Adam Carolla on the Kevin and Bean radio show in Los Angeles.
All these horrible shop teachers, they were angry guys with big mustaches and big forearms who loved woodworking and hated kids.
Although the character is an amalgamation of real people, his name is meant to be a subtle reference to wood.
Bertram was the name of a guy I played Pop Warner football with, but Birch is the name of a wood. So it makes you think of wood.
The Bertram character became a fixture on the radio show, making jokes and offering surprisingly useful home repair advice.
Yeah, I'm putting some cabinets in my garage, and I was wondering if you could give me some pointers on how I can do that.
You building those yourself?
Yes, I am.
All right, start with 3/4 paint grade lumber core birch, good one side. If you want to substitute 5/8 top grade Luan, I won't tell anyone.
Corolla would partner with Daniel Kellison to create Crank Anchors, which was a series that featured crank phone calls acted out by puppets. The series brought the Bertram character to television.
Yeah, I don't go to the doctor and ask his permission to kick a man's ass.
Okay, cool.
The Bertram character proved to have enough potential that an animated series would eventually be pitched to Fox, and an animatic was created in 2011 as part of that pitch. According to a TV Guide article from the same year, Corolla was partnering with former King of the Hill executive producers John Altschuler and Dave Krinsky to create the series. Although the network ultimately passed on the show, the pilot was made public when it was posted online sometime later.
Even the dogs are idiots around here. Got it.
Peanut butter, Mr. Bertram.
These are peanut butter sniffing dogs?
We had to retrain them, but yes.
After the pilot failed, not much else was done with the Mr. Bertram character, but he got an unexpected revival when Adam Carolla started working with the Daily Wire. To back up slightly, though, the Bertram project wasn't their first collaboration. Adam Carolla starred for the Daily Wire in Adam Carolla Truth Yeller. It was a comedy series that was a combination of Carolla doing stand-up and talking to other famous people.
Inconclusive. I think that would probably be... Well, they'll be that way after the show.
Right, to be like, was it a good show?
I'm inconclusive.
Jay was strong. Carolla just kind of mailed it in.
Yeah.
The series lasted 6 episodes. But if you want some of the merch, the hoodies are 70% off on the Daily Wire shop, which makes me think this series isn't likely to return. Also, don't give these guys any money. The Mr. Bertram animated series is part of the Daily Wire's push to create movies and TV shows to compete with mainstream streaming services like Netflix and Disney+. So far, the results have not really caught much mainstream attention. If you want to learn more, I've done a bunch of videos on that. Although the Daily Wire has recently tried its hand at animation with the kids series Chifchilla, this is its first attempt at an animated series targeting an adult audience. Mr. Bertram is the story of a cranky shop teacher as he tries to navigate a modern world he doesn't understand.
Same rules apply. First one of us to get insulted by one of these punks wins the...
You suck, Mr. Bertram!
Still got it.
His wife Wendy is a liberal real estate agent.
Wait till you see what I did to the basement.
This is why I'm going to drink barrels of wine during your teenage years.
His son Eddie is a professional streamer.
Is that chair vibrating?
Take care of your body and it'll take care of you.
And his stepdaughter Jeannie is an avid devotee of her stepfather's woodworking philosophy.
That hack doesn't know the difference between a coping saw and a banjo saw.
The casting for the series is an interesting mix of friends of Adam Carolla and friends of the Daily Wire. Carolla described the process of recruiting some of his friends to pick up some of these roles.
People I've worked with over the years and socialized with over the years and became friends with over the years and thought, this guy would be good for this role and that guy would be great for that role.
Thanks to the Carolla's connections, the cast is a lot more star power than the usual Daily Wire production, with performances by Patrick Warburton, Rob Riggle, and Jay Moore. Alonzo Bowden was a particularly interesting addition as Mr. Bertram's best friend Gage, considering Bowden seems to be on the left with his many appearances on The Young Turks. Based on one of his comments at the red carpet premiere, I suspect he hasn't completely bought into some kind of right-wing worldview, as he at least seems capable of understanding that comedy still very much exists and doesn't need to be saved by conservative media.
There have always been comedians on TV. There's always been people upset because this comedian said that, that comedian said that. Comedy's been here. So I don't buy into comedies. Comedy's not back because it never left.
Also surprising was the appearance of Danny Trejo. Although he's never been particularly picky about the roles he's taken on, it did still personally kind of disappoint me to see him in this. The Daily Wire's casting choices reflect some of the usual performers they tap for their roles in their work. Brad Cooper was cast as Jeannie, Tyler Fisher as Bertram's nemesis, Mr. Carponzi, and Candace Owens as Wendy's friend, Dina. That last casting choice wouldn't stick, though, as Candace Owens would leave the Daily Wire a few months after Mr. Bertram was announced when she made some comments critical of Israel. Sage Steele, a former ESPN anchor, replaced Owens on the show. The Daily Wire also edited Candace Owens out of the original trailer, though thankfully I saved that original original trailer so we can see the before and after of these two performances.
Don't do anything stupid other than last year.
Don't do anything dumber than last year.
The character Dina only appears in one episode, though, so the impact on the show was pretty minimal. A series doesn't have to be defined by the drama behind the scenes, though, and coming in at a brief 6 episodes, Mr. Bertram was given the chance to put its best foot forward. The central conflict of Mr. Bertram is one man's struggle to deal with a changing world. It's a common theme in sitcoms going back decades, from All in the Family to King of the Hill. The premise of shows like these is that the main character is angry at the world for leaving them behind. The reason this idea has persisted over the decades is because it consistently feels relevant. Society can change very quickly and has been for the last century or so. And feeling left behind or knowing someone who feels that way is very relatable. So it makes perfect sense for a sitcom to present that sort of conflict. Usually this alienation the main character feels is personified by a supporting character connected to modern society. The clashes between these two characters is used to show the differences between the two generations. In All in the Family, it was Archie's son-in-law, Michael. In King of the Hill, it was Hank's son, Bobby. And in Mr. Bertram, it's his son, Eddie. Or at least it should be. That is, if it was following the pattern of previous shows. But it's here where the series runs into problems. Bertram doesn't really interact with his son in very many meaningful ways. In the 6 episodes of the series, the only plotline they appear in together is in episode 5, Oh, the Humanity, when the family works together on a Homes for Humanity project. But instead of focusing on the Bertram-Eddie relationship, the plotline also involves Wendy and Jeannie. So there isn't much space for father and son to do much interacting. And when they do interact, we don't really see much conflict between them, as Bertram is very pleased to see his son impressing the girls at the job site.
It can't be. He's sweating. So he was listening when I taught him how to handle a hypoid saw in preschool.
Aside from that, we only see a few exchanges between the two where Bertram expresses his disappointment with his son and Eddie tries to explain his modern guy ways.
It is an invite-only gaming marathon.
I bet the dead Greek bastard who ran the first real marathon would love this.
Sometimes Mr. Bertram will realize the wisdom in Eddie's words towards the end of an episode, but he never really interacts with his son, and he never has to dwell on the fact that he may have gotten things wrong this time. It's just a very minor correction, and then the episode moves on. The real generation conflict happens more frequently between Bertram and Carponzi, the school's Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion officer. The acronym spells Jedi because I guess Star Wars is woke or something.
My pronouns are he, him, and Z. I'm a heteronormative, cisgendered white male. For which I apologize.
Carponzi is very clearly meant to be a bad guy in the series. In fact, Adam Carolla describes him like this.
It is a sort of amalgamation of society. Like, you don't really represent one person I know. You represent every bad idea.
Every annoying
every
ideology.
super annoying ideology and anything society has cooked up in the last 5 years.
In the conflict between Carponzi and Bertram, which becomes very frequently the main point of contact between the old and modern visions of society, the show very clearly takes a side that's unlike most other shows of this type. Whereas King of the Hill presents Hank as someone who sometimes rightfully criticizes modern society while being wrong on occasion, and All in the Family has Archie firmly in the wrong, Mr. Bertram goes in the other direction to show it's his old-fashioned views of the world that are largely in the right. This doesn't mean that he's never wrong on the show, though. There are occasional moments where we see Bertram may not be entirely correct when looking through his rose-tinted visions of the past.
When we were kids, we knew how to man up.
Warball for the next 30 minutes!
Oh, no.
What are the rules of Warball?
There are no rules in Warball.
But these moments are not that frequent, and we are more frequently treated to numerous rants that leave supportive characters happy and opposing characters reprimanded.
You don't know that the point of hard work is that it's hard and it's work. You want everything to be easy and comfortable, which is why the Chinese are eating our lunch. Come on, Janie, I'm about to lose it.
About to?
Epic rant, Bertram.
Episodes often lead up to Bertram delivering an impassioned speech, the other characters literally cheering him on.
I'm teaching kids how to build things while I'm building their character. That's what America is all about. They're either selling tools to rich kids who don't know how to use them, or poor people who'll have to replace them every 2 weeks. What about the rest of us? He tried to get my friend Don to play the race card to throw me under Rosa Parks' bus.
If this were an action series, Bertram would be the type of character who gets punched in the face once in a while and then responds by beating his opponents into powder. This is a series with a very specific point of view, that the old way society worked is far superior to modern society. That's not to say that having a perspective is a bad thing. A show doesn't need to be balanced for the sake of being balanced. Where Mr. Bertram stumbles as a series is in the execution. Bertram standing triumphant at the end of each episode with everyone cheering him on really makes this whole show feel like wish fulfillment. This is Adam Carolla's pet character talking down to all the things he hates in modern society. It's a reverse caricature often presented of supposedly woke Hollywood, though it ironically lacks the nuance or skill you would more likely see on more traditionally produced works. And it speaks to how amateurish this whole series feels. We don't even have to leave the world of Mr. Bertram to make that point. We can contrast the Daily Wire series to the original animatic produced in 2011 to show how genuine skill and talent can present this out-of-touch shop teacher as someone sympathetic. In the brief episode we find in the animatic, running just over 9 minutes, we see Bertram going through a number of very similar struggles, but in the final moments, the victory he's able to achieve is a lot simpler, where he sneaks away to enjoy a chocolate bar, a small moment of peace in a world he doesn't understand anymore. It presents the figure as tragic, and ironically, it makes you want to root for him more. It's sad that society has left this guy behind, and it's easy to have sympathy for him. It's the sort of guy you would be happy to see proven right in a future episode. This is in stark contrast to the Mr. Bertram series on the Daily Wire, where people are literally cheering for him by the end of the episode. In fact, if we go to the very first episode, when we are introduced to the Mr. Bertram character, he's presented as the hated shop teacher.
You suck, Mr. Bertram!
But by the end of the episode, when a tribunal is held to see if Mr. Bertram will be able to keep his job, many of the students stand up to protect him.
He also taught me how to use a totally sick orbital sander, and I'm actually starting to like woodworking.
Thank you.
Señor Bertram es un buen maestro. Me ha enseñado muchas cosas. Me gustaría que saliera con mi madre.
And as I showed a few moments ago, when he delivers his impassioned speech, everyone is cheering for him. He's not the same loser from the animatic, and if anything, he's a beloved truth-teller now, winning people over with his righteous speech. It's like a conservative caricature of the West Wing. It's harder to build sympathy for a man claiming that society has left him behind when he routinely humbles said society and convinces everybody else that he's right. And going back to Carponzi, by making him the main foil instead of Eddie, we don't have the same emphasis of shows like these where the out-of-touch old guy is trying to learn how to live with his more modern family members. There's no presumption of love that demands these people learn how to live together. Rather, Carponzi is an enemy that needs to be defeated, and usually is. As I said earlier, this whole series feels like wish fulfillment. Enemies get vanquished, our heroes proven right, and then everyone claps. To look a little longer at the older Bertram stuff, in his earlier appearance, there's an even starker contrast to what we find in the Daily Wire series. After having listened to dozens of his appearances on radio programs and on crank yankers, the older Bertram comes off as way less sympathetic. He's more obnoxious and often outright creepy, like when he propositions a woman on the other end of a crank phone call.
I hope you please forget my phone number, please.
Your back door? Your back door, gal? No babies in the back door, I'll tell you that. God knows I've tried.
I'm going to report you to the police, you disgusting
Hey!
Early Bertram's life is a complete mess. He's dealing with PTSD after serving in Vietnam and complaining about his missing prosthetic leg and his fat wife. He's still a tragic figure, but in a far meaner sort of way. The audience is not expected to have any sympathy for this version of the character. He's just this nasty old man being cruel to everyone around him, a product of his own misery. And we're meant to laugh at how absurd and ridiculous he is as a figure. He's the sort of character that was probably way too unlikable to be the lead of a series, which is probably why when they created that animatic, they really softened him so that he wasn't just a completely irredeemable, obnoxious crank, but rather a sort of sullen, rough-edged, but ultimately likable guy. The Daily Wire series takes it way too far, and suddenly we have a bitter old guy who's been transformed into a folk hero. It's almost as if, having gotten older, Corolla has become the character that was once a caricature, and bitter alienation has transformed into self-righteous arrogance. Another problem with Mr. Bertram is when it comes close to making a good critique of modern society, it gets muddled in conflicting talking points and a general discomfort with even seem remotely anti-American. For example, in the third episode, This Means Warranty, Bertram needs to replace one of his tools and is frustrated to find out modern tool stores have been taken over by the tech industry.
When there's no stud, you'll hear this whistle. When it hits a stud, you'll hear this bell.
So you're saying this gadget literally has too many bells and whistles?
This is some decent satire, mocking the model of tech industry disruption where an industry is given lots of trendy changes that no consumers are really asking for, all in an effort to create the next big tech sensation. Where this goes astray, though, is a revelation late in the episode that this is all a plot by the Chinese.
The company that bought and dismantled Spears also owns Cargo Freight and U-Tool. It's a Chinese company. Peking Commercial Consolidation, PCC.
Instead of what could have been about the boundless greed driving Silicon Valley to promote unwanted innovations, it becomes a weird conspiracy that China is responsible for selling people products they don't want or need so they can spy on everyone.
These tools are for fools. We can collect more data on the American middle class than ever before. Ha 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 ha. Good job, son.
Thank you, Father.
While I certainly don't trust the Chinese government, it does seem like a strange twist in what at first appeared to be a decent critique of modern American culture and the desperate hunt for profit happening in the tech industry right now. Another example is in the second episode, Thank You for Your Meal Service, where we see Wendy and Dina go for a spa day together and discover that they have different political philosophies.
Does she assume just because I'm black that I'd vote for a tax-raising elitist because he happens to be half black? And she only voted for him because she thinks he's hot.
I'm not sure how you don't figure this out in a friend you've known for at least 12 years. As the two bicker back and forth, one side arguing for the left, another one arguing for the right, they're interrupted by the Vietnamese masseuses who tell them that they should be grateful that they live in America. It doesn't resolve any of their differences at all, but it does make the very boring point that America is a great country, because this show can have America being understood as anything other than great.
You're so busy arguing, you forget you're Americans, and it's already so great here. Mệt với mấy người Mỹ này quá. Rất là ngu.
Another failing of the series is its very weak plotting. Going back to the episode about tools, the Chinese company that's a thin cutout for the Chinese government is revealed in the final 5 minutes of the episode and is only barely foreshadowed by a throwaway joke early on about Bertram not liking tools from China.
All their tools are made in the People's Republic of China. I'm not going to spend my hard-earned American dollars so they can build stronger suicide nets around their factories.
But getting down to more specific plot points, we see things start to make even less sense in the 6th episode of the series, the gym rope incident. The premise for this one is that the climbing rope has been removed for the school phys ed class. Bertram and Gage are so outraged that they sneak in at night to hang up a new rope. In the morning, what's instead discovered by students is a noose. Carponzi is quick to assume racism, and the episode wants to mock how silly that leap in logic is.
As with all things, racism is the only possible explanation.
I'm somewhat sympathetic to the idea that some additional context might be needed to call this racism. Perhaps if there was a plot point about a new black student joining a sports team or something. But even without that, a noose has a pretty long history as a racist symbol. So the assumption that it might be some form of intimidation isn't the most ridiculous thing in the world. And even if this noose wasn't racist, it's still really alarming to see something like that suddenly appear in the school gym, and it makes perfect sense for people to freak out. For example, if a student or teacher was planning to use that noose on themselves or someone else, the school should be on high alert. Instead of sitting with this mystery, though, it immediately gets solved in one of the least believable plot twists I've ever seen.
Damn it.
For those who aren't sure what's happening here, the absent-minded janitor moved the rope out of his way, and it somehow twisted itself in midair to become a noose. If the whole point of this moment was to reveal how Carponzi, and by extension modern society, can be way too quick to label something as racist, why did the real explanation have to be something far less believable? What are the odds of something like this ever happening in real life? Well, it's easy to overlook weird plot devices, like no one thinking to ask the janitor where the noose came from, or any of the other questions that could be teased out of this hastily written story. It's this one in particular that's so glaring it's hard to ignore. It really creates the impression that these scripts were not carefully put together and probably could have used a few more drafts to iron out some of the rough parts. One thing you probably noticed in all of these clips is how the animation is not particularly impressive. This becomes especially noticeable in the Family Guy-esque colored gags.
What color is milk?
Target neutralized.
Ricardo Berchan.
You can see very clearly how the frame rate drops for these gags. In animation production, footage is presented at a rate of 24 frames per second. That is, figures are shown on screen 24 times to create 1 second of animation. In more lavish productions, they will draw a unique figure for every single one of those 24 frames. This is called a drawing on ones. Since this is obviously a lot of drawing, some studios will reuse drawings. So instead of drawing 24 unique frames of animation per second, they might instead draw every other frame, instead opting to use each drawing twice, creating a total of 12 frames per second. This is called drawing on twos. It's not quite as smooth and fluid, but obviously saves a lot of time and money. To save even more time and money, animators can draw every third frame, meaning they draw 8 frames per second. This is called drawing on threes. Mr. Bertram, I suspect, is sometimes drawing on fours. That is, there are 6 frames of animation per second, making this animation look like it's coming over the internet on a connection from 1996. It's the sort of thing most major animation studios would never tolerate, and it reflects what is almost certainly the small budget that went into creating the series. The studio behind Mr. Bertram is Wise Blue Studios, based in Valencia, Spain. Looking at their website and their work in their portfolio, the studio seems capable of producing better things, so this is almost certainly an issue of time and money being spent on the series. Another tell of the show's low budget is the sloppy audio design, like the cheesy guitar riffs sometimes used to punch home, especially with jokes.
We're selling a dream of perfection, like fashion models who never gain weight, or Android phones that never crash.
Or the Green New Deal.
Be advised.
The voice work in the series doesn't do much to elevate it either. Although most of the performers do a decent enough job, there are a couple of lowlights, including Roseanne's tired performance as the principal and Megyn Kelly as Wendy revealing that she has, in fact, never acted before.
I didn't know you were a coaster.
I also got a tramp stamp
Friendly
of a bald eagle that goes all the way down here to...
No!
It's not my listing, but Rick has a mansion he's been trying to move. A few weeks ago, a rapper wanted to shoot there.
A video?
His manager got really ugly, so it's been sitting on the market for a while.
Another thing I noticed in this series is how old it felt. Not just its format, but the jokes themselves make so many dated references, like a joke about Britney Spears being crazy or Wendy swooning over Barack Obama. I imagine the references aren't lost on viewers, but it makes the series feel old. Making it feel even older are some of the recycled jokes. In fact, one of the plot points from the first episode, where Bertram gives the kids donkey points and then forces them to work on his home project to work off the demerits, was taken from a joke he was making back in 1994.
All charter members of the Donkey Squad, by the way.
What's the Donkey Squad?
Well, you know, the trouble kit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had him over the house with a long weekend working off some of those minus points.
As you might expect from a show funded by a conservative media outlet, the show doesn't take kindly to left-wing politics, though its jokes mocking the left often fall flat.
That's because you lefties don't know what's funny. You call some lesbian talking about cancer a stand-up special, and you think NPR is LOL.
NPR's whole vibe has never been funny. NPR is the network you tune into when you want vaguely left-wing ASMR voices to lull you to sleep, and you've already watched all the videos on my channel.
You know, kids aren't allowed to ride scooters on campus, son.
I'm well aware of the rules. I work here.
When we see Carponzi driving his little scooter, his license plate is a joke about the LGBT+ community's acronym being too long, something that's been played out for decades within those spaces and outside of them. These tired jabs at the left aren't very funny and often don't make sense. In a red carpet interview with one of the writers for the series, he pointed out his favorite joke during the premiere.
I think the joke about, Carponzi saying we have zero tolerance for mentioning intolerance, I think is perfect.
With a sense of humor like that, I guess it's not surprising that the show turned out the way it did. In the 4th episode, 127 hours or so, a trapped Bertram has a nightmare where the tools he uses to teach the kids are upset that he lets the children misuse them. They sing a painful music number that includes this one. In the context of this show, the tools are righteously criticizing Bertram for not being able to teach the kids how to use them properly. But aside from touching on the topical political story from 4 years ago, what is being communicated by this show? Especially since the left is typically presented as the losing side in this series. Are the tools diluted the way BLM is often presented by the right? Or are they co-opting the phrase for their more righteous struggle? I'm not sure there's anything going on here aside from someone thinking that the phrase "Tool Lives Matter" was funny, which it isn't. I imagine there might be people on the right who are thinking this is just another left person who's been completely triggered by the right trying to be funny. But I'm honestly not bothered. I'm more confused. Why is this meant to be funny? Why is this supposed to bother us? It's just strange. I have to mention one of the weakest jokes in the series, and that's the boy named Beef. The running gag with this guy is that he constantly shouts out his nickname, Beef. In addition to having a deeply unfunny comedy voice, this gag wears out its welcome after the first time you hear it. It's like they wanted to add a running gag that could successfully deflate any sort of comedy in any scene. Speaking of running gags, I even have to take a break from mine because I don't even want to pretend I participated in this thing.
Jose, I think it's great that you kept your negative thoughts to yourself.
This is a counterfeit Jose, not the real deal. Don't believe anything he says. There might be some of you out there, possibly, trying to defend Mr. Bertram right now who genuinely think it's funny and would like to know what I, some random YouTube guy, think is funnier than this particular program. So here's a random sample of funny.
How are you supposed to be a strong, thrilling, powerful warrior and lover with a name like this? It is like a weak ejaculation. Jeff.
Okay. The reaction to Mr. Bertram has not been particularly encouraging. There is one review that came from a channel called Pop Culture Crisis, though I want to highlight. For those who don't know this channel, it was started by Tim Pool, which is why the host got an invite to this premiere, and they reported something interesting about the audience's reactions.
There were plenty of times where Mr. Bertram was the butt of the joke, and you were supposed to laugh at how irrational and curmudgeonly he is at times. Yet that wasn't what I noticed Drew laughs. I noticed what Drew laughs is making fun of Carponzi, making fun of his gamer son, and like all of these other characters.
The premiere event for Mr. Bertram was stacked with people from the Daily Wire and other right-wing media figures, so it shouldn't be surprising that the few times the clearly conservative Mr. Bertram was made to look foolish didn't really get a laugh. This wasn't created for an audience ready to laugh at themselves. And maybe that's why they shied away from making Bertram seem in any way tragic or sympathetic. They primarily see this series as a vehicle for conservative wish fulfillment. Although the Pop Culture Crisis hosts were kind to the show, other reviewers, like Lauren Chen, couldn't bring themselves to pretend this series was good.
I also don't want to, frankly, say that something is good just because it agrees with my political narrative, when in reality, I don't find it entertaining.
There were positive reviews, though, and I have to highlight this one from a website called Worth It or Woke for one of the funniest reviews I've read in a while. Here's an excerpt. The rest of the star-studded voice cast is perfectly adequate, and with talents like Roseanne Barr and Jay Moore, just to name a few, on board, they will almost certainly continue to gel as the season fully finds its voice. However, there is one among the cast who shines like a rainbow sun in unicorn heaven. Stand-up comedian Tyler Fisher plays Mr. Carponzi, an avatar for every radical progressive nut bar idea floating around the current cultural toilet bowl. Maybe it's just my inner editor speaking, but this reads like it was written by a high school student. And if it is, I apologize, but please hire an editor that will expect more from a writer than shines like a rainbow sun in unicorn heaven. Based on these mixed reactions from the target audience, I think it's safe to say that the response to Mr. Bertram has been mixed. What hasn't been mixed was the absolute gold rush of creators desperate to dunk on this show. And let's be real, this video is part of that mob. Pointing out how terrible this show is pretty fun, and it's quite likely it will earn more money for people who mock it than the Daily Wire itself. I suspect all of this is meant to pretend as if the left is outraged or frustrated by this stuff when really we're just finding ways to monetize it. And what I think it reflects is the morbid curiosity people have about shows like this. When they see trailers that look like absolute garbage being produced by some truly unlikable people, they want to know how bad it gets without spending a cent or a moment of attention in a way that will benefit the company making it. And it seems like more than the Daily Wire are trying to get in on this conservative cartoon trend, as recently seen on Twitter with the New Norm show.
What's that? Offensive. Actually, that is one of my pronouns. Also they, them, and me.
You're non-binary?
A series about an Archie Bunker ripoff that is neither offensive or funny.
When you coming back to the trophy shop? As soon as I get rid of this, which means I gotta take in that?
An animated show with a laugh track.
Billy is an emotional support dog and non-binary.
Oh.
Voice work from Dave Rubin.
Don't understand. You're black.
And an appearance by an animated Elon Musk.
Thank God for Elon Musk.
While we're talking about the Daily Wire, though, I want to do a quick update on the health of the company. The last time I tried to dig up any numbers on what was going on, I noticed they weren't sharing any, and they still aren't. But I was able to track down a few pieces of information that can give us a sense of how the company's doing. A recent town hall hosted by company president Jeremy Boring gave us a few insights.
And these aren't the best of times. You all feel it. The social media giants have all but blunted our reach for the first time in the history of the company. Is that a surprise? They literally shut the country down in 2020 to stop Donald Trump from getting elected president. They just charged him with 34 counts of felonies that they can't name in this election. Of course, they're going to make it harder for us to do our job between now and November.
This is one of those incoherent conspiracy theories where they includes the U.S. federal government, the New York district attorney, and social media companies. Apparently they are all working together, and one of the items on their agenda is to silence the Daily Wire. These town hall events, which had been traditionally used by the Daily Wire to announce big new initiatives, and this is the weakest one we've seen in years. Going back a couple of years, we can see a town hall that was hosted in a giant hall that included big announcements like signing Jordan Peterson, or even town halls that felt like they had bigger audiences and bigger news to talk about, like a $100 million initiative for kids content. Instead, this town hall is the shortest one by far, running for only 12 minutes, and the only new project announced was that the Daily Wire is partnering with Angel Studios for a movie called Sound of Hope, clearly trying to capitalize on the Sound of Freedom craze from last year. The release date for this movie was July 4th, 2024, so if this is the first time you're hearing about it, that's probably a good indicator of how it flew under the radar for most people. In fact, on its opening weekend, it earned $6.4 million, which is a far cry from Sound of Freedom's eventual total of $184 million. That doesn't mean this movie is terrible or made by awful people, of course, and some of that was made clear from a public statement from one of its producers, Letitia Wright. You may recognize her from the Black Panther and Wakanda Forever movies where she played Shuri, and in her statement she publicly distanced herself from the Daily Wire. She wrote this on Instagram. To be clear, after we completed the production of this film, Angel Studios were brought on board to handle its distribution, and they later partnered with the Daily Wire. That was not my decision, and I was not given an update or made aware of this decision. I am in no way aligned or affiliated with the Daily Wire. I'm thankful for all who want to positively champion this film and campaign to serve children. However, I do not condone using this beautiful film for divisive political purposes. That is not why I joined the project. Jeremy Boring of the Daily Wire responded saying, "The Daily Wire is truly honored to partner with Angel Studios on such an important project. But such is the intolerance of the modern left that instead of celebrating this accomplishment and all it might mean, one of the film's producers, Letitia Wright of Black Panther fame, used the occasion to condemn the Daily Wire's involvement in sharing this message across the country." As an example of how the Daily Wire promoted the movie, an article from Deadline shared a Twitter post from Matt Walsh, where he blamed leftists trying to stop Christians from saving children. And if this is part of the Daily Wire's marketing support, it's hard to buy Boring's comment that it's the left trying to advance some kind of political agenda here. And yes, Matt Walsh's tweet came out well before Letitia Wright made her statement. Rather than the Daily Wire trying to do a good deed, it seems more like they're trying to latch on to a movie with a positive message to advance its own entertainment company ambitions. Had the Sound of Freedom not made so much money, I am deeply skeptical that the Daily Wire would have tried to get involved with the marketing and distribution of this movie. This whole episode does reflect the fact that mainstream Hollywood still wants nothing to do with the likes of the Daily Wire and its attempts to get into the entertainment industry. Going back to the Daily Wire town hall, there was kind of an update about Ben Key.
Over 125,000 families have watched over 100 million minutes of shows that kids love and parents trust.
For those wondering how this might translate to some kind of financial success, while an annual subscription for BentKey does in fact cost $100, fact is, BentKey is actually free for anyone who already has Daily Wire Plus. And since the number of subscribers there was last reported at 1 million, there's a good chance most of these BentKey downloads are being freely added by people who already have Daily Wire Plus subscriptions. They desperately need that Brett Cooper-led Snow White movie to somehow get people to download this thing more. And more importantly, buy new subscriptions. I feel like things aren't going well for BentKey right now. And as a reminder, they spent nearly $30 million in the first year of this service's existence, and they're slated to spend another $70 million over the next 2 years. Unless they've changed course internally, it seems like this is losing them a lot of money. I will eat some crow because they announced that Lady Ballers was their second most watched piece of content, which genuinely surprised me. And it really speaks to what their audience wants to see. Not movies trying to be politically neutral, but rather their favorite conservative commentators, appearing in cheesy comedy designed to mock marginalized people. And while they didn't announce it at the town hall, I'm guessing their most watched piece of content is the Matt Walsh documentary, What is a Woman?, which came out several years ago. We did get a tiny bit of information in an article that was published by Axios that reported that the Daily Wire has earned $22 million in commerce, roughly translating to 10% of their revenue. Commerce includes the various products they sell, from razors to chocolates to the various offerings they have in their online shop. Though of that 22 million, the razors and various other grooming products account for 19 million, which means the transphobic chocolates and cigars and baseball bats autographed by Ben Shapiro didn't earn the company more than $3 million in 2023. If we can extrapolate revenue value here, the company seems to be making roughly $220 million a year, which is an approximate growth of 10% from the last number we heard from them from over a year ago. And in that time, they've spent something like $30 million launching BentKey alone. I also imagine producing several movies did not come cheap either. It really seems like their spending is outpacing their revenue growth here. And it makes me wonder how profitable this company was in 2023, or how profitable it's been in 2024 for that matter.
Roger.
It remains to be seen if Mr. Bertram will be a success for the Daily Wire. But I do think the company very much needs some kind of new talent or program to bring in new subscribers. I'll try to keep an eye on them, and hopefully we can have some fun talking about the next big project, the Pendragon Cycle, whenever that comes out, because I am most hungry for this. I suspect a car crash that will just be an absolute joy to witness. Or maybe it'll be good. I would actually want it to be good because I like watching good television instead of bad television, but somehow I doubt I'll be so lucky. I'm not a huge fan of making videos about subjects that have already been covered in recent history, but I did notice when watching some of the videos made about Mr. Bertram, they felt a bit incomplete or were a little too focused on the first few episodes in an effort to get their videos up as soon as possible. So I thought there was still room for me to say something unique and interesting, and I hope you all found something of that in here. It does feel strange, as for a while it felt like I was one of the few channels that discussed the Daily Wire's creative ambitions in any length or detail, and now there are all these other channels doing something similar. Not that I think they're necessarily copying me, it's just that they've noticed people are interested in mocking really bad attempts at creating movies and television. What would be a much cooler...
The zone is ours.
What's going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today I have a huge video for you guys discussing a future nerf that's going to be happening to the movement within XDEFIANT. Now, Surprisingly, I didn't see this on Twitter. I actually saw this on Reddit. So, God, thank you to the Reddit guys for going ahead and putting this up over on that channel, or else I would have never known that this was going to be happening here. But as you can see over on Twitter, Mobster Matt put out a post saying 4 additions to Ranked XDefiant that will drastically improve the user experience for Season 1. 1. Ability to reconnect to ranked matches. 2. Factions limits. 3. Faction locks. 4. Slight additional nerf to bunny hopping, perhaps the most noticeable request from our community. And Aches went ahead and responded again. Correct me if I, mispronounced his name there. I'm actually not too sure how to pronounce it. But he said, what is number 3 exactly? We're working on everything else, though. And again, for anybody who doesn't know Aches, he's basically working behind the scenes with the XDefiant team on Ranked, and I believe he also played a part in the weapon balancing and all that stuff. Very, very useful person there who, obviously is taking in a lot of the feedback from the community as well. When I go on Twitter and I look up, the 2 people who are communicating with everybody, it's usually Mark Rubin and Aches, as you can see here. I'm just going to say Patty P, baby. That's what I'm going to be saying. Because I for some reason, I feel like I'm mispronouncing it, but at the same time, I feel like I am pronouncing it correctly. I want someone to please correct me down in the comment section. But you heard it from the mouth himself there, guys. We are going to be seeing a nerf in the movement. And again, also for the ranked players, it's also huge. I don't really play too much ranked because I know the state that it's in. I'm patiently waiting until these fixes come on through. But again, yes, it's going to be an ability to reconnect to ranked matches, which is going to be phenomenal, and also faction limits, which is huge. I wish we would have that in casual play, but again, I understand people think that it wouldn't make it, casual. So I get it. But at least in ranked, if it's in ranked, I'll be satisfied. That has to happen because the 4 stacks of Phantoms are just getting absolutely freaking out of control nowadays with the 120 HP. Mind-boggling. And then hopefully as well we get to see some more penalties for people leaving games, and not reconnecting. If you leave a game and it's due to your connection or something like that and you want to reconnect, that's great. But if you're rage quitting a bunch of matches because you're versing people you don't want to verse and you're leaving one person alone on the team to try to carry for the rest of the game, not only are you a loser, but you should be penalized 1010%. So, these additions are fantastic. But today's video, I want to hyper-focus on the movement one because, again, I know this is what the community cares about the most. And on this channel, like I said before, yes, ranked is cool and all, but I mostly play unranked when it comes to XDefiant. And I feel like a lot of the people who watch my videos watch me for the casual side of this game. So, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to the current movement system, you are allowed to have 3 hops or 3 crouches. And these do not cross over with one another. So if you do 2 hops and 1 crouch, your aim sway isn't going to kick in. You are allowed to hop 3 times, and you're allowed to crouch 3 times. And on the 4th crouch or the 4th hop, that's when it kicks in. Not on the 3rd hop. I see a lot of people say, well, you hop 3 times and it kicks in. No. You can hop 3 times and you're good. The 4th hop is when it kicks in. And they did say a little while ago that they were going to tone this down a little bit if the community still didn't enjoy this. So what I'm assuming now is that on the 3rd hop, that is when the aim sway is going to kick in here. So you're going to be able to jump 2 times or crouch 2 times. And then at that point, if you decide to do it a 3rd time, your aim is going to get absolutely screwed over. And honestly, I think this right here is the perfect middle ground. I know people want it nerfed to the ground, but seriously, you can't expect that out of these developers with this game. This game, this style of movement is built down from the core of this game to where it is now. This was ingrained into the DNA of XDefiant. So we have to respect it for what it is. I always preach this on this channel because for some reason, people hop into games with the different mindsets. I don't know if it's because I play a lot of different games, so I respect different genres, but I don't know. I feel like Call of Duty players are specifically about this because they don't really play any other FPS games besides COD, so every game they go to, they try to COD it up, you know what I'm saying? But you gotta respect it, right? I don't go to Rainbow Six Siege and say the game needs B-hopping or spammy movement. I don't go to a milsim and say this is playing too slow. I need more action-packed, gameplay. I need it to be more arcadey. I need more snappy reaction time, stuff. I don't do that. I don't go to COD and say, I really wish that I could slow this down and start leaning around corners and, slow myself down. I don't do any of that. When I go to a game, I respect it for what it is. And that's what we have to do with XDefiant here. We have to respect it for what it is. I like the movement. I think the hops are fine. I think the crouches are fine. And I really think the air strafing is fine. And that is a very controversial take. And I might make a completely separate video about this. But I know a ton of people hate air strafing. I think it's really cool. And a lot of people say it's impossible to counter. And I argue it's not impossible to counter whatsoever. I mean, the fact that people are bringing it up shows that they are aware people are doing it. So why don't you just react to it? Like, I don't get it. I really don't get it. When I see an opponent air strafing all the time in every gunfight, I prep myself for him to airstrafe. I just don't see how it's that complex. If I know that every single time this guy engages with me, he's going to jump, but he's going to cut back over to the left mid-air, I'm going to aim up and then cut back over, knowing that that's what he likes to do. Whereas in another opponent, if they don't airstrafe as much and they just jump, they land. And they jump over again and they land. I'll prep for that engagement. But again, that adds to me personally a nice skill gap. It makes you a little bit harder of a target, and you can maneuver gunfights a little bit easier. But again, the problem with the air strafing is mixed with the B-hopping as well. Being able to do it so frequently. You know, people can literally stand in place and fly across your screen 5 different times, air strafing everywhere. And, you know, it does become a bit tough. But toning down the B-hops and toning down all of that stuff, you can't airstrafe as much anymore. Like I said, if they're going to manage the movement system like this, and I'm not saying it is, I'm just going off of previous information they told us. We have no clue what the next update to movement is going to, give. All I know is it's going to be a slight change. But going based off of what they said previously, they said that they're changing it to what it is current date. And if the community doesn't really care for it, they're going to tone it down by 1. So I'm assuming, like I said, off of that information, you'll be able to hop 2 times or crouch 2 times. And that's it. Which means you'll only be able to airstrafe maybe 1, potentially 2 times within an engagement, which is way better. Again, compared to someone air strafing around the map 5, 10 different times in one engagement, they can only do it maybe like once or twice if they actually want to, making it a bit more of a manageable skill gap. And again, I appreciate this. I like the movement in this game. I really do. I think it's solid. And I love having the mentality of knowing that I can, kind of chain combos. So you know what I'm saying? Like, it's weird. I know it sounds weird, but it's almost like kind of like a fighting game where if you master it enough and you memorize combos and you memorize how things go, you can really start chaining together really dope combos and making it really cool. It's the same thing in this game. Like I said, before this nerf is going to happen, right now in its current state, you can jump 3 times or you can crouch 3 times. And you can do that in any order that you possibly want without aim sway kicking in. But again, if you max it out, then aim sway kicks in and you're penalized. So it's like a little middle ground that you have to find to master. And it's so cool, the amount of combinations between, if you want to crouch first and then get a little air strafe in, or you want to B-hop to the right and then maybe do a little crouch to the left and then try to B-hop again to the right, but cut it off with the air strafe and back over to the left. You see what I'm saying here? You can hit some really cool combos and think of some really creative things that actually work, that can actually throw your opponents off. And I know people hate that, but for me personally, I really like that. I hate when it's just so generic. Even Call of Duty, that's not the case. People drop shot all the time. People crouch spam all the time. People B-hop all the time. People slide cancel into B-hops all the time. There's so many different movement techs in Call of Duty as well. That's why I just simply don't understand why everybody's so mad that XDEFIANT is trying to branch out and make their own style of, movement, when all these other games do the same thing. Even Rainbow Six Siege, like every game, even the most tactical games have some type of movement tech. CSGO, for the love of God, even CSGO has movement tech that you could take advantage of to get a upper hand advantage on your opponents. And you want to learn this stuff to get an upper hand advantage on the opponents. I don't know why all of a sudden now within XDEFIANT, nobody wants that. They just want people to stand still and give easy kills. But again, I love the style of movement in this game. I think it's awesome being able to chain together combos like that. But I do agree it needs to be nerfed down just a slight bit. And I think this is going to be a perfect middle ground for this community. And I cannot wait to go ahead and try this out. Because again, like I said, I learned the B-hopping. I learned all the movement. But I do believe, being in the spot where I'm at right now, like I said, I've learned it all. I still think a slight tone down would just, it would be better on the eyes, first and foremost. It doesn't look as cringe. It's going to be a bit more, not insane. And B, it's just going to be a less spammy, Because right now, I will agree, we're kind of in a current spot where a lot of the engagements, the smartest thing to do is just to, get mid-air as fast as possible. You want to throw off your enemy's aim, especially if you're going to run into 2, 3, targets. It's much better to, start making yourself a harder target earlier than later. So the mass majority of your gunfights, especially if you're versing skilled and experienced players, they're going to get to moving, right? They see you, they're either going to start jumping and air strafing, they might get a crouch in or something like that. They're going to do anything in their power to make sure you miss, a couple of bullets right out the gate. And with this nerf, that's not going to change. People are still going to, move. but it's not going to be as you're going to be able to engage with them a lot easier because they can't move as much. 2 hops, that's perfect. That's literally perfect. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think any engagement should really last more than 2 hops alone. If anything, maybe you throw a crouch in. So 2 hops and a crouch, or, you know, a hop crouch into another hop. Usually by then you should be done the engagement. The only reason you would have to continuously B-hop is if it's more than one opponent. That is where the B-hop spam really comes in. Just someone crouch spamming or someone B-hop spamming is absolutely irrelevant. They're so easy to kill. The real ones who are our problem are the ones who know how to take advantage of this movement tech and use it to their advantage against more than one person. That's where it really becomes handy, taking on 2, 3, 4 opponents at once. Yeah, you got to get to moving, because if you're just staying still or just, you know, doing a strafe to the left, you're not taking on more than 2 people or 3 people just with aim. Unless obviously they're much lower than your skill bracket, then yeah, you could probably take a couple to a few on. But if you're versing anybody of similar skill, no shot. The only way is you got to get to moving. And it was easy. It was extremely easy. Then after the first nerf, they made it, you know, not bad, but it still was slightly easy. Now, if they tone it down one more time to just 2 hops, a skilled player has to think, because they can't just spam hop or they lose aim and accuracy. They can't just spam crouch or they lose aim and accuracy. So they have to think of combinations to be able to tweak these 2 movement combos together to, you know, make sure that they don't run over the timer to, you know, give them that penalty for accuracy. They have to find a little bit more wiggle room. It's going to be a lot more creative, a lot more of a skill gap, and also for casual players, it's not going to be as obnoxious. Again, I'm really excited to give this a try, and hopefully it turns out good. But ladies and gentlemen, as always, leave your opinions down in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this, you know, this upcoming update here for movement, and also the rank changes as well. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you hate it, leave a dislike. Don't forget, guys, subscribe and hit that bell if you want to be notified for any content just like this. We do indeed post daily here at 8 in the morning Eastern time, anything XDEFIANT, and we also discuss Call of Duty as well on this channel. So like I said, subscribe and hit that bell. And of course, if you guys are interested in any of my live streams, I will indeed be live today between 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern time over on Twitch. And we also stream pretty much daily besides Sundays. So if you guys are interested, you want to interact with me a little bit further than just, you know, obviously YouTube, or if you want to hop into the open lobbies that we host pretty much daily, by all means, tune into the stream. I got a link to that channel down in the description of this video. But as always, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you all on the next one. Peace out.
Give it up for the one and only Tony Hinchcliffe.
This story's kind of crazy. I think you guys are in for a little bit of a treat. So here's the exclusive, is that obviously it was a coordinated attack. Obviously, he's in cahoots with the Chinese media. When you open your phone and you're on the front page of fucking everything, front of a joke. Whatever you do not apologize.
Tony, so we had, when we had Uncle Roger on the show, he was like, it's so...
Give it up for the one and only Tony Hinchcliffe.
This story's kind of crazy. I think you guys are in for a little bit of a treat. So here's the exclusive, is that obviously it was a coordinated attack. Obviously, he's in cahoots with the Chinese media. When you open your phone and you're on the front page of fucking...
We're gonna go on a bit of a rabbit hole, I think.
Throwing grenade! Frag out!
compromised. Zone compromised. Allies are winning. Orders are to take all the zones and keep them secure. Teams taking C. Zone contested. We secured the zone. Be advised, all capture zones in friendly hands. Enemies assaulting Zone C. You're in the groove, operator. Carry on. Enemy action on Zone B.
Setting a proc here.
Allies taking Zone C.
Activating defense system.
Mission accomplished.
I miss old white people. Like Asian, like
like Gran Torino. Clint
Yeah, like you know, I grew up with such a hostile like racism.
What about what about that story I saw on TMZ